Welcome to World News by Denis Halandzovskyi. If you value calm, well-researched, and fact-based reporting on global security issues, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share your perspective. Today we explore a serious and troubling topic: reports of abuse, mistreatment, and lack of discipline within the Russian military, based on investigative findings and first-hand accounts. Recent reporting and documentation point to systemic problems within parts of the Russian armed forces, where soldiers have faced mistreatment, forced recruitment conditions, and punitive disciplinary practices. According to interviews with current and former personnel, some units exhibit a culture where physical coercion, verbal harassment, and extreme pressure are used against recruits and lower-ranking soldiers. In some cases, individuals report being compelled into service against their will or pressured into combat roles without adequate preparation or support. Other testimonies describe hazing rituals that go beyond routine discipline, involving physical punishment, psychological abuse, and arbitrary enforcement of rules. These conditions, when combined with the stresses of active combat and low morale, can create an environment where soldiers feel isolated, fearful of reporting issues, and uncertain about their future. Military analysts highlight that such problems are not unique to any single army, but the scope and consistency of reported cases among Russian units indicate deeper structural weaknesses: weak oversight, lack of accountability, and ineffective mechanisms for internal complaint. Further reports point to leaders relying on intimidation as a tool to manage troops, rather than training, cooperation, and professionalism. This can erode trust between commanders and those they lead. Soldiers who feel abused are less likely to fight cohesively, more likely to desert or surrender, and more susceptible to mental health struggles. Official Russian military channels rarely acknowledge such issues publicly. Instead, reports of abuse often emerge from independent journalists, social media accounts of current and former soldiers, and human rights organizations documenting conditions behind the front lines. These testimonies collectively paint a picture of units struggling with morale, cohesion, and discipline, factors that can undermine operational effectiveness in ongoing conflict. The implications of abuse and poor discipline extend beyond individual suffering. First, morale and combat readiness. A cohesive fighting force relies on trust between commanders and troops and between soldiers themselves. When mistreatment and coercion replace respectful leadership, morale suffers. Units with low morale are less resilient under pressure, more prone to desertion, and less effective in coordinated operations. In the context of a protracted conflict, such weaknesses can have strategic consequences on the battlefield. Second, long-term effects on veterans and society. Soldiers who endure abuse and psychological trauma may return home carrying long-term mental health scars. This can affect reintegration into civilian life, family relationships, and community stability. Veterans who feel neglected or mistreated may become disillusioned with institutions, affecting civic engagement and social cohesion. Third, international perception and propaganda. Accounts of abuse within Russian ranks provide material for international criticism of Moscow's conduct not only in war, but in how it treats its own citizens. Opponents of Russia's foreign policy amplify these narratives, while Russian officials often dismiss them as misinformation or isolated anecdotes. In information warfare, such stories can influence global opinion, affecting diplomatic leverage and alliances. Fourth, deterrence and defection. When stories of mistreatment spread among potential conscripts or international observers, they can deter enlistment and weaken recruitment pipelines. For adversaries and defectors, such narratives can be leveraged to encourage desertion or undermine confidence in leadership. In some conflicts, reports of poor troop treatment have shifted public attitudes and reduced support for prolonged engagement. Experts emphasize that military effectiveness requires not only weapons and strategy, but also discipline grounded in professionalism, respect for human dignity, and accountability. Armies that cultivate respect and shared purpose tend to perform better than those where fear and abuse dominate daily life. In the case of Russia, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, coupled with internal pressures and reports of mistreatment, presents a complex picture. The health of a military's internal culture is deeply tied to broader strategic outcomes and the society that sustains it. Thank you for watching this in-depth look on world news by Denis Halandzovskyi. If you found this explanation clear and informative, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share your perspective. Independent reporting helps illuminate the realities behind the headlines. Stay informed, and we'll see you in the next update.